Welcome to One EMS, the assessment. I am Charles McFall here at the Georgia EMS Association Providers Conference. I'm with Heath Williams, the creator of the Heath Candy Bar.
That's right.
That's right, yeah. And then you gave up that fortune to go be a flight medic.
I did.
So good choice.
I'm not a flight medic. Not a flight medic.
Okay.
Never have been a flight medic. I was a ground medic.
All right. So, but you got a helicopter. I made assumptions, which you shouldn't do.
Yeah. So I do work for the company now, but I'm just a program director. I don't.
Okay. Now, so don't put just. Don't put
you're
just.
Right. You're right, and I apologize because I've said that earlier.
Yeah.
I'm the program director for our base. So I'm just in a management role now.
Okay. So it's 3, 2, 1, 3 easy questions, 2 middling questions, and 1 hard question. And that's going to be the first easy question. What does a program director do at a base?
Essentially, I'm an EMS director for a ambulance service. I handle all the administrative stuff. We have to do marketing in our service area. Handle personnel issues, stuff like that, and just basically I'm there to take care of the crew, make sure they have everything they need to go do their job.
Okay, and you said ambulance, so there's some ground crews associated with. Are you talking about the flight crew?
The flight crew, yes. Yeah, so we have one aircraft assigned to our base, and that's it.
Gotcha. I've just been I can't say that. A lonely road warrior. No, I get it. It's interesting. Okay. How long have you been in EMS?
So this is 30 years. I started in 1994. Went to EMT school. The obvious progression was 6 months after finishing EMT school and getting a little experience on the ambulance. I was working from my home county, went to paramedic school, graduated paramedic school in 1996, and I was a primary medic on the truck until 2014 when I came off shift and got into management with my previous job.
Okay.
Local county fire department, EMS captain at that point, and was running the EMS service.
So then in that career path, 30 years, because mine was just started 2 years behind yours. I started in 96, got my medic to 2000. What has been your path? Has it been mostly in one place and then you saw an opportunity, or has it been kind of the standard ping pong of services?
No, I mean I worked for my previous service for 29 years. Started there. It was fully my intent to retire from there. After I spent 4 years as the EMS captain, I got promoted to deputy fire chief. We were combined fire and EMS service.
Okay.
And both have kind of been my passion my whole career. And just the politics. I moved to the deputy chief position, and I really moved away from the camaraderie in the firehouse and the family atmosphere. It became more of like running a business, and I had to deal with elected officials, and it was a constant push to do more with less, and that's just kind of what I didn't go looking for another job. This just kind of fell into my lap. I saw an opening, and I'm like, this may be a chance for me to move on. Okay. I felt like I had done all I could do for that department.
Gotcha.
So. It was the right thing at the right time, and I was in the right place, and I must have done something right because they hired me.
And that's the thing about career paths, right? You think you're heading in one direction, and you do everything you can to be that.
Yes.
And then that actually empowered you. Apparently somebody just died. I don't know what all that was. But,
there's probably somebody here that go handle that.
Nobody flinched. All the EMTs like, whatever. That's police. That's not us. You start being in one direction, but everything you build on yourself, and that made you ready for the next thing. Yes. Now, for the medium difficulty questions, you mentioned it came like running a business. Now, then you added the extra salt it's not being salty, I mean like seasoning, the extra seasoning of dealing with elected officials. Because my first thought is, when I got in EMS, it was, all they care about is the money. They care about the paperwork. This and that. That's the attitude I adopted. Went through life, got educated on different things, different paths. Now that I run a company, I'm like, you don't come to work for free.
Right.
We do need to make it. So is there, the question is there a negative to running EMS like a company, like a corporation?
Oh no, absolutely not. The only way you're going to be able to sustain it is you're going to have to make money to keep things going. So before we were a county-based service, so we relied heavily on tax dollars. There was a large gap between reimbursement and what it cost to run the service.
Of course.
So on top of the other headaches, then you had people complaining about taxes, and it's always going to happen. On the private side, I mean, yeah, you have to make money to keep things going. You can't provide the service if you don't have the resources to do it. So I do understand that there is a need, and there has to be business decisions in place in order to finance the things that need to happen for us to provide the service.
And this is my take on it, and nobody else's. That's my only disclaimer here. But it feels like we have, when we talk about business, what we're really talking about is standards and holding people to a standard. If you don't reach it, I'm sorry, you can't be here. And our industry, I've watched over the last 28 years, kind of go to and stay in. We have to have them. We have to have them. It's like they just drove a truck into a pond, man. But we gotta run these calls, and this is all generics, right? It's when you talk to the elected officials. I went through a county commissioners meeting where I was making $10 an hour as a paramedic on a 24-hour truck in post 2000s world, like 2010 somewhere in there. And these retired commissioners were there going through the budget, like, oh, all this overtime, all this. Why can't they just do it? And I was in a dark place. I was stressed out about money, and I had paramedic on my shoulder, so I was untouchable. So I went, blah, blah, blah. I didn't cuss on everything, but it's like, hey, you morons! While you're sleeping, I'm out here working. You know how much I make? $10.12 an hour. That's what I make. I can't even make $30,000 a year, and they're like, oh my God. I was like, yeah, in your retirement, you're probably making triple what I'm making, busting my butt at 3 a.m. So how about you shut up about the... it didn't change anything, because they were retired, but we don't want to deal with elected officials. I don't want to deal with elected officials, but they're part of the system. So that's the next hard question for you is, even with what you do with the marketing and everything else, what part of what you do is the part you don't want to do? Like for me, it'd be having to answer to an elected official and educate them over and over again about this is what it really is and not getting fights. What is it about what you have done or what you do that you're like, yeah, we could do without that?
I think it's the accountability piece, and I don't want to sound like I won't hold people accountable, but it's uncomfortable, and
it is,
and especially with today's generations, is trying to make people understand there is a standard that you have to meet. And when I say a standard, I don't mean you have to have your FPC, your ACLS has to be up to date. There are certain things that I expect of you when you work here.
Exactly.
And I can't fathom why they just ignore it, just refuse to accept that there are certain things. So holding people accountable, I wish we didn't have to do it, but not because I'm uncomfortable doing it, or because I feel like it could go away.
Yeah.
I wish we didn't have to, because the other side.
Right.
On the same token, I know there are people who hold me accountable, and the people that I supervise should hold me accountable just as well. So if everybody would do what's expected of them, then I think that piece would get a lot easier.
Yeah, and I think I've been working on that one as well, because it's the same thing. It's like the higher up, this is my statement again, I don't want to get you in trouble with anything, but by running my own company, I've even said it loud, it's like the higher you go up in leadership, it feels like the more it becomes babysitting of adults. And I've put a few rules into my rule books that was because somebody did something I never thought I'd go. I never thought I'd have to tell an adult this, but do not do X, Y, Z while you're on the truck. And it's tough. Accountability. I've talked to, we're old heads now, really. And I've talked to people who are even still older than we are still in the service, and they're like, yeah, man, we see what needs to be done. We'll step up to a certain point. I'm sure we all have our blind spots and weaknesses, but not the things like why. It's because our generation was dismissed, more or less. And not in a, hey, you don't matter way, but it's like, hey, we're all busy. Life is changing. You guys got to figure it out. And then we get held accountable for stuff we never even learned. So we had to go learn it, or we had to quit. And most, especially when you're drawn to fire EMS, quitting is not really an option. You just have to go, okay, I ran into that wall, wish I hadn't done that, but now I'm going to learn the hard way and move on. And in the 90s, there's a lot of learning the hard ways with some of the old heads then. But we were we were held accountable without it being what we do today. Sit down and go, and Heath, this is what we needed you to do. This is what I told you I expected of. It's a different accountability.
Yeah.
And we just got to figure out how to translate that. So the hard questions are categories, right? Finance, mental health, education, or I can ask you anything.
Mental health.
Mental health. All right. 30-year career. Mental health treatment, in my experience, was early retirement at the end of a gun. What have you seen change, or what have you helped affect change in helping people in their moments of weakness? Your staff, your coworkers.
So I feel like in this realm I'm an enigma.
Okay.
Because I started, I started in the fire service in the early '90s, and mental health then was suck it up, buttercup.
Right.
You're going to see bad things, and this is what happens.
Yeah.
And that truly was my mentality up until about COVID, till about 2020, and I actually saw. And I've been lucky. I don't feel like I have experienced any mental health issues. Maybe I have, and I don't know it. I don't know. But
sure.
But I honestly saw, and some things happened very close to me that made me realize that we were doing it wrong the whole time. We really, really were.
Right.
And
we being the industry,
I have done a complete 180 on the mental health thing. I mean, you have to check on these people, and it's not a generational thing there.
Right. No, I agree.
A difference. We all struggle with things in different ways, but we all have that one catalyst that causes us to struggle, and it's what we do. So now I'm way more apt. I go in, I check on people. Look, I know you had a rough flight. Do we need to talk about anything? I am not the counselor. I am not the person to sit down and talk with, because my advice is going to be drown it with bourbon, push it way, way down. It'll be okay.
At least you realize that's the bad advice.
Well, I mean, that's worked for me for 30 years.
It worked for me too, Tom. But no.
And realize it. And thankfully, there have been a lot of people that have taken this torch and ran with it over the last 10 to 15 years. And I think, at least in Georgia, we have a very strong network of mental health professionals that have recognized the issues that we face in public service. I'm not talking about just paramedics. I'm not talking about just fire. Public service in general, and nurses, everybody else. When you see that much bad stuff day in and day out, there's no way it can't affect you.
Right.
And I'm also looking at people that I feel like are like me, to where you also have to say it's okay to be okay. Everybody says it's okay to not be okay, but it's also okay to be okay. It doesn't make you a psychopath or anything else if you don't lose your mind after doing this for 30 years. People are built different, and you just have to accept that.
Yeah.
So, what may send you over the edge, I'm going to run the same call and go back and go to bed, or vice versa.
Right.
So, I'm very proud to see what this industry has done, that we have taken the mental health issue serious. There's still work to be done, absolutely, but I think we've gone a long way. And if we can have close to the same leap forward in the next 10 to 15 years, I mean, it's going to be good.
Nobody talks about that part of it. And I think actually everything's exponential. So the progress we made in the last 20 years will be the next 5, and we'll see even bigger growth in that field. And the 2 stories that I was thinking of, one was like when I was going through, as the first few years of my marriage, I was stressing out and almost destroyed it. We went to counseling. I started just cracking the surface on what I'm dealing with, and the counselor, nobody could help me. So now we actually have professionals that understand that, and they see that. And we get to this field, the second one was basically, we get into this field to, everybody always says at some point, why'd you get in here? Help people.
Yeah.
But we don't help each other.
Right.
I did it. Too many times, like, hey, Heath over there, he's going through some stuff. And then you just start to gossip instead of going over there and going, how you doing, man? How's it going? And the hardest thing, I think, is to differentiate the ones who say they're okay and seem like they're okay, but they're not okay.
Yeah.
And that's the next step, I think.
Well, I tell you what really did it for me, because I think every medic that's ever worked on an ambulance has that one call, and I've got mine. And I was talking about it with a buddy who has gone to CISM training and all that. And at the time we were talking about it, 10 years had elapsed since this call. And he started asking me questions, and I didn't realize what he was doing at the time, but he was asking very pointed questions, and I was giving him answers in detail. And then the last question he asked me was, "What did you have for breakfast yesterday morning?"
Right, you don't remember
And I'm
that.
like, "Dude, I have no clue. Why would you ask me that?" He said, "You just gave me details from 10 years ago that I can tell is vivid in your mind like it just happened yesterday." He said, "So you don't think it affects you?" He's like, it may not put you out of service. It may not put you down, but don't think it doesn't affect you."
Right.
And I mean, that was truly an eye-opening moment for me. I'm like, oh my God, am I okay? First of all, but and since then I've worked through it, and I am okay, and I can continue to function. But it affects everybody. Nobody is immune to it. Nobody.
And we could talk forever, but we shouldn't. With that is that just because you're okay doesn't mean you're not affected. That's a really great insight.
It's not a contest to who can come out on the other side without having shed a tear.
Right.
So
well, Heath, I appreciate you sitting down. Appreciate you drinking with us last night and talking. And sounds like you got another at least 10 or 20 years left in you to do some great work for you. All right. Well, thanks for coming by.
35 years is plenty enough.
I hear you.
Thank you.
Yeah.